Hello everybody, this is Richie from the Metal Cell podcast. I want to first of all give a shout out to our main sponsor, Rising Suns, the award-winning brewery in Cork. Now, I am delighted to welcome Kevin Byrne with Sonus Mortis to the show. How are you, Kev?
I'm good, Richie. Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers,
bit of whiskey.
Man. Are you on the whiskey? Oh, fuck's
Why not?
sake, man. I was thinking of bringing up with a glass of wine and all. I was thinking, just out of work. But
it
anyway,
is a Monday, so.
Yeah, the Monday Club, man. So, first of all, congratulations on Collapse the Mountain.
Cheers. Yeah,
and a brilliant, shining example of terrific musicianship, lyrics and songwriting. So, fair play to you, dude. Much respect. And thanks for throwing it my way.
Yeah. I thought it was time. I've been at it for a while. So
You have. Yeah. And what's the reception? It's only been out a few days, really, Kev, is it?
Yeah, like the last album was pretty good as well, but I'd say this is kind of topping it now.
Great.
Did about 10 orders on Saturday, and then I did another 10 today, and there's 3 in the pipeline. So that's just physical,
Okay.
So it's doing pretty well considering. Like I don't do a lot of like promotion, like only around the time I'll build up to it.
Okay.
I try not to like push it really far. I try and keep it a balance between, something, a video or something, that's worthwhile instead of just saying 4 days until
I know,
the album and nothing else,
Yeah, it's a common occurrence on the show that I meet so many talented people on it, and they create this incredible body of work, yet they're the worst ever at trying to promote it because everybody's different, I suppose. Kev, maybe what's your kind of whole perspective on it? That like you've created so much, put so much time and energy into it, and then created this body of an album that means so much to you in so many different reasons, and you're surrounded then by normal day life, family, etc., and then you're going to have to go into full advertising and pushing it out there.
Yeah, to try and get a balance, I suppose, is the main thing. Because, like, at this stage, I'm 10 years nearly into it. Next year, it'll be 10 years doing solo stuff.
Incredible.
And with Valediction, like back then, and with Valediction, we weren't really. I mean, it was MySpace back then. So, I mean, that was completely different times. And even back then, you'd like a band because, on those pages because you wanted to follow them. Yeah. Now I think it is a bit harder with like the algorithms, how things go, like bands, like Facebook and all definitely want you to promote it with money,
Yeah.
So you have to do different things now, and TikToks or all that kind of stuff that I wouldn't even venture into now. It's not my realm,
Yeah.
But yeah, I do try to push it out there. I kind of feel with music, if it's good enough, it has to pass a certain threshold for people to start noticing it. I mean, the very first song I did, I pretty much did little to no promotion of it, and I just put on YouTube. Right. Obviously, back in 2013, maybe it was a bit easier with algorithms and stuff like that. But I mean, that's still one of my most listened to songs, on YouTube.
Yeah,
and just all the comments and everyone talking about it, and just kind of through word of mouth on the internet kind of thing, kind of pushed me on to do even more. So and same with this album as well. I mean, the fact that all these physical orders came in is kind of like it's a nice pat on the back.
Yeah, and it's getting to people.
Yeah, and it's great to see like it coming from random places, and like someone from Japan asking for like an autograph and sign it on the CD, and I find that kind of mad. I am very, when it comes to celebrities and stuff, I'd avoid them. I wouldn't give them. Maybe it's an Irish thing as well. I just wouldn't give them the time of day. It's like, leave them alone.
It is an Irish thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like the podcast as well. Like I just like you fucking chart in New Zealand, you chart in Iran, and all these random places, and you're just going, wow, that's nuts. But then you just fucking move on, and you just acknowledge it and go, how is that happening? And then you move on, and like, because you just really can't dwell on it as such. From your point of view, obviously they're your fans, they're buying the material off you, so it's interesting maybe to kind of look at their backgrounds. And would you ask maybe some of them how they found you, for example? Or
Yeah, again, I try not to prey on them as well. And there's only if they've sent me an email themselves.
Okay,
Well,
fair enough.
obviously I'll talk back to them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will ask because you are very curious to find out like where did you hear from me? Because especially like something that's from Ireland as well to try and get it globally. Because like obviously there's a lot in Germany that buy my stuff and America.
Traditionally, the strongholds,
So yeah, obviously the strongholds and stuff. But yeah, just to find out, and it's like, well, YouTube, or it came up on Bandcamp as a discover on the top feature for when your album comes online. So it's just that second, it's kind of like attention economy kind of thing. You only have so many hours in the day. Loads of people listen to podcasts like yourself, and that takes up an hour or so, and then there's not much time left in the evenings. So.
I often find as well that there'd be some people on YouTube that would have, I suppose, a station that would be just dedicated. For me, it's trash. Like, so there'd be 4 or 5 different people that'd be posting new trash the whole time. Is that similar for your kind of music? Is there people out there that would just kind of get onto you straight away and go, throw that onto a playlist or onto a YouTube channel?
Yeah. And it's always the same now for the last few years. Like even with my first album, and I was kind of pissed at the time because like, you put so much effort into it and then you see it on like all these Russian sites and YouTube, the whole album.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck. And then you realize, after the third album, I started to like be at peace with it and realize, these people are promoting it. I don't know what their backgrounds are like, they probably couldn't afford anything, in these types of ways. So you kind of let it be and you kind of look at it as promotion. Because there is, as I say, it's like nearly collapse the mountain is kind of that thing. We have mountains of stuff. Like you could go through mountains of podcasts and you never reach the top. The same with music, same with, there's so many parts of our lives that we can't reach the top, and that's okay. But, as long as we enjoy what we're doing, like it's the journey rather than the destination,
Yeah, absolutely. And the journey, Kev, is interesting because you were with a band that has become more popular now than they had probably been when they were going. Valediction, because I mean, there's a real underground scene there now, and the likes of those bands now are also being mentioned nowadays. Younger people are discovering them. So maybe just talk about, I suppose, the young Kev, where you grew up, what was the background, was in music, what were your influences?
I mean, from an early age, I was into music, and how I kind of figured that out was when I was 6 and 7, just watching films.
Okay.
And, I got the ear for the theme song that would be in the film. My dad would have the VHS tapes, kind of showing my age now, but I'd nick them on the sly. So, films you record off the telly, like Aliens, Alien, Predator, Terminator, all the 80s classics, basically.
Yeah.
And I'd be listening to the theme song. I'd be rewinding back to an action scene. And I'm like, oh, that music's quite cool. Kind of militaristic drums and everything and Aliens and stuff. And around that time, my dad's kind of noticed this and he'd, buy me soundtracks. I'd fall asleep listening to them, like John Williams, James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith, and Hans Zimmer kind of more lately. And then one big one was getting Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds on CD from my dad.
Oh, sure, that's a classic, yeah.
Yeah,
I have that on LP, would you believe, here?
Oh, class.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the first or second pressing, but it's an old one.
That's amazing, yeah. It has to be the original, by the way, none of this new
No.
Yeah. But
it's so cool that fucking Phil Lynott is on it, like.
Yeah, and I didn't know that at the time. I was so young, I couldn't connect the two. It's only later on I was like, wait a minute. And you see it on the album and you actually link it. It's like, oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
His voice is excellent for that. But even like the whole idea of like getting the guitars, the synths together, like the story, I just loved that as a kid. Like, and I loved the 1950s film as well, which was like far superior to the Tom Cruise Abomination.
Abomination is right, yeah.
But I mean, even like the music in the 1950s film, the theme, it's not really a theme, it's just kind of real classical music, but it's really haunting. Sure, back then that was like, oh, this is kind of sets the tone for the film.
It does.
But like that, all that kind of stuff feeds into what I do now,
Yeah. And so like you were like a sponge at the time.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Like, and with my family, like they're not really musical. Like my mom would listen. We were encouraged into music, but my mom just like from growing up, she just listened to the music on the radio. Only realized, like, after talking to her, like nowadays, like she's like, oh, I used to listen to Led Zeppelin and Rory Gallagher, all the 70s kind of rock and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, of course it is, man. That's really nice to hear. And like the first instrument then, was it a guitar?
No, you know, they got me into the like tin whistle, yeah, to try the spoons. Go in the corner and play your spoons, you know. But yeah, the usual tin whistle recorder. I eventually started playing in a Lucan concert band, so out in Dublin. And just to show my innocence now, but when I was like 14, 15, looking for a summer job, first thing I had in my hobbies was playing the flute. I'm sure someone got a good chuckle at that, like.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I played with that. I was in a Lucan the canticle at the time as well when I was a preteen, and that's probably why my voice is so rigid and like, well, I kind of think it's kind of boring because you kind of meld it into a certain tone at the time as a kid. Right. You never really stray from that then. So
that's interesting.
But look, I kind of like doing baritone stuff. I might do more singing. I do a bit now and again in the albums, but it wouldn't be a main source. It's usually just pure screaming, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
so like, did you form a band in school then, or what happened then, Kev?
I think we're back there.
Okay, just went there. Did you hear the question, Kev? Did you form a band in school?
No. Yeah. In secondary school, but it was kind of stuff like, I had a guitar, real like Ibanez, my first guitar when I was 14, and we were playing things covering like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Smashing Pumpkins, like kind of the alternative stuff from the 90s that we would have kind of grown up on.
Okay.
And like I didn't even have an amp. It was like a double tape stereo. And it sounded terrible, but to me it sounded great. It was like the best thing until you see someone else, then their band come on and they're way better than you and they're blasting like Metallica or something. You're like, oh, okay, so this is how it is.
yeah.
But yeah, then it was only when I was 19 did I start to get into Valediction. Then, you know, I knew one or two of the lads from school. And like, you know, I wasn't playing bass at the time, but they were looking for a bassist. And yeah, it was just a case of their previous bassist was, let's just say he had a boot on the end of his bass for balance.
What?
I don't know what that was about. Yeah, a boot for balance, apparently. Apparently it was too heavy for him on one side. So I knew I didn't have much competition. But the lads were cool. Like they were into like Ice Dirt, Maiden, all that kind of Nevermore. All those bands, like, and I was kind of late discovering all them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, over like it was about 2005 when we started Valediction, and then it took about 2 years before we actually got a gig and a full lineup, really.
Okay.
We got a second guitarist, Kilo, and he was like brilliant. It's like he could sweep when he was like 16 years old. It's like he might be a bit younger than us, but we have to have him.
Yeah,
and then we had Lara Fraser, who was in.
I went to college with Lara, man. Fucking
no way.
Yeah, great singer actually.
Yeah, great. He was in like First Blood and Predator, all these kind of bands in the 90s.
Fucking like, lunatic.
Yeah, but it was great to have someone with experience compared to us. We were bright-eyed guys at the time.
Was Lara older than you? Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say it was good 10 years.
Oh
maybe.
My God, are you serious? That's fucking hilarious, man.
But like we didn't mind because we were like, look, he has experience, he has good stage presence, someone who could sing. That's what we were looking for at the time. We were very much power metal type band.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he was the one who got us the supporting gig with our first gig, like with Mass Extinction. Do you remember them? Of
course I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Class band, like. Like that was October 2007. So like that was the era, like there was a mini thrash revival going on at the time.
It was, yeah.
And they were kind of spearheading it, as far as I'm concerned, in Ireland at the time. And I remember their demo was coming out, Creation Undoing, and this was their demo launch.
Okay.
They were releasing it in a place called The Temple. So it was on Dorset Street in Dublin. Is that a cool kind of basement for a gig?
The Temple, was that down by Comet Records?
Yeah, near on Dorset Street. So yeah, it's close enough to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, the fact that we got that gig, like I'd say it was probably because of Lara, you know, and we were something a bit different on the support list, you know. I mean, there's Raging Conflict as well. They were kind of a war type band that were kind of like bolt thrower.
Oh yeah.
And then there was Venusian Death Cell.
Never heard of them.
Have you heard of them?
No.
They are notorious. So I'll just tell you a bit about the gig then. I just remember that part of it being a bit mad. So I remember going downstairs with our gear and everything, and you know, they're on first Venusian Death Cell, and I have no real clue about them. So the whole crowd is kind of chanting "Vortex, Vortex," and I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. Obviously, they have a following, so I was a bit, oh shit, like if they're good, we're on next. But there's only one guy, and he's behind the drum kit, and I'm like, okay, see how this goes. And he has a mic, and then he just kind of bangs away. There's no other music except for him, and he's like screaming down the mic, and he was saying like "haha Halloween" and all this, and the crowd were repeating it back to him. And I'm trying to like figure out what he's saying in other songs, and the crowd are roaring after each song. Like it was kind of like beautiful chaos. But
Jesus, that's mental.
Yeah,
so
it was a bit
just
mental,
literally a drum guy, a guy on drums.
Apparently, there was supposed to be a guitarist was supposed to come, but he just never showed up.
So he just played the gig by himself.
Yeah, just didn't. Fair play to him, you know. But after 15 minutes of this, we were just told, here, just go on. He's starting to get into a daze. So he's just kind of staring down at his kit, and we were like setting up around him, which was a bit awkward.
Oh my God.
And he was kind of coaxed off, and then like we played our bit, and gig went well, and like the lads from Mass Extinction, I have to say, they were pretty sound, and they give us that slot, and for our first gig, and like to be honest, they were so welcoming, like to the scene and all that, and I think that kind of elevated us to get like more decent gigs from the get-go. The fact that we were a bit different, like we did play a bit of cheesy power metal, and no one else was kind of doing that at the time. I hate to say that, but you know, a lot of people say like, oh, we were the only ones doing this. But as and Mass Extinction had us on for a few more gigs supporting as well, so we must have been doing something right.
So when you were looking around then at the scene, Kev, was it just kind of a band decision to get heavier, or do you think it was just a natural progression for you as a band?
Yeah.
Could you have been cynical about it and go, well, maybe we should go down this route because there's, you know, a bigger scene?
See, we were doing well with Lara and the clean singing. We found out pretty quickly we were one of the few at the time doing it. And like they have the synths as well, which was kind of frowned upon at the time. But at least we had a keyboardist, so it played the part. And like, you know, we were playing with bands like, you know, Sorrowfall, Visitor Q at the time, which were Vile Regression, Decay, Dead Label. They were all like starting as well around the same time as us, like Darkest Era as well. And they were singing. And like all real sound bands, and got on with them really well. And maybe there was a bit of air competition around the place, but I kind of viewed that as a positive thing, because that only usually happens when it was a good support slot for a good band. And we didn't really play many gigs. We played about 10 a year.
Right.
Like we didn't play Fivers every weekend. If we didn't overstay our welcome. I kind of felt like we supported like Disaster, Germany.
Oh yeah. Fucking class band.
We're top support. Yeah, great band. I mean, blew voodoo out of it. Like, and that was like 2008. Played with like Turzaz. They came over from Belgium, and they played Siege actually in 2017. So it was great to see them. Like, kind of reminded me. They played some of the songs they used to play back then as well.
Was Jim Tobin in Cork at that stage doing any of the Winter Fest gigs?
Yeah, we did the 2008 one with Amon Amert.
People don't believe me. The fucking I was only on about that the other day to someone. I can't remember now, but they wouldn't fucking believe me that I'm on Mart played the Grushkin Lawn in Cork.
They were on the cusp of like getting like blowing up basically. Like they just released, I think, Twilight of the Gods, or
that's right, it was, the
Thunder Gods or whatever. The most annoying part of that was, so me and Foster, once we did the gig, we're like, right, let's get pissed, and we just went up to the top and we just started doing Jaeger shots. I'm pretty sure they ran out of Jaeger. Maybe it's not because of us, but we at least drank half the bottle of it. He was comatose. I had to bring him back to the hotel, and I missed most of Amon Amert, which everyone was saying, you know, obviously blew the place apart, like, you know. And
the drum kit was the stage, like.
Yeah, it was very small. I love that place, like just up at the top of the hill. It's a pity it went, but have good times there. We went there a good few times. We played with Wizard, this kind of power metal-y band from Germany again.
Right.
We played in Dublin, which was a good turnout, but on Crucial Lawn that night it was pretty bad. There wasn't really many people that turned out, and there was like a disco or whatever, like a techno gig straight afterwards. And we were trying to talk to Wizard, and they're like looking across, and all these lads, and and I was like, yeah, we didn't know this was going to happen straight afterwards.
It happens a lot these days. Even Voodoo, you're just fucking shepherd out, like, and next minute there's the full-on rave or whatever. What's going on? Yeah, strange times, man. But they were all good times for you, Kev, and like the bonds you'd meet with other band members. I'd like to think that those friendships are still there.
Yeah, I suppose I'm not funny. You probably wouldn't notice this talking to me, but I'd be quite not antisocial. But like, once I'm finished the gig, I'm kind of sweating like a maniac,
right?
And I just want to get a few drinks, and so if they see me at the bar, I'm talking to them. I'll get them a shot or whatever, and if they're playing with us or whatever, we'll drink with them and stuff. But I'd need time to like cool down and like just because I don't know why, but like just anything I do, any kind of exertion, I'm like, bam, I'm gone. But,
that's mad. So we'll say, when did Valediction come to an end, or?
Yeah, so like we replaced Lara in 2009, and we went down the heavy route. We were kind of listening to like In Flames, Dark Tranquility, all the kind of melodic death metal, which was popular at the time.
Yeah.
And like we were detuning. We were like, I became the kind of main songwriter then when Kilo left.
Okay.
And so we went kind of down the kind of heavier route. And it was 2011 we brought out a debut album, and that like was well received, to be honest. And I still get like, I'm the only one that's on the Facebook page now, and I'll still get messages like, oh, I can't believe you broke up, you split up, any chance of you getting back together and stuff. And,
I was only listening to it yesterday because of this interview tonight, the Primitive Architecture.
Yeah,
man, there's 2 or 3 great tracks in there still, dude.
Tell me which one.
I'll tell you now.
If you can remember, because I'll give you a funny one. So when I became...
Go on, talk away there, and I'll give it to you. Go on.
This will settle something for me. Or not, maybe. But I remember when I was kind of pushing more of my material into the band, and had a song called Transcendent. And I remember Kilo listened to it, and he's like, that's one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember in the Metal Ireland review, it was given a paragraph, kind of explaining like how he kind of thought that was one of the stronger songs.
The Siege of This.
Oh, Siege of This, yeah, class. Yeah,
that's a great song.
So that settles that.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But you can see the 2 different kind of songwriting there, like, the more power metal driving stuff that Killer would write, and then kind of the darker stuff is more my stuff, and I had to continue with it with Sonus Mortis, But it basically came to an end. Like, we were doing good gigs. We played with Diamond Head. We got them, like Martin, our singer at the time, he got them over, he promoted it, went to Dundalk and Dublin, and it was great to play with them. We were playing with Blaze Bailey, and a few others. And then I think by the end of 2011, start of 2012, we got this buy-in tour,
right,
for a band called Propane. And
of course I've heard of Propane,
yeah, the PAIN, not a Propane,
not the American band,
and I remember googling them, and it was like a fistful of hate and like the American flag in the background. I was kind of listening to their songs, and I was like,
how is this going to match up? Like,
I don't think it matches up with us. Like, obviously we went a bit heavier, but we weren't kind of like a new metal hate breed.
Chalk and cheese, dude.
Yeah. So, and I was looking at the crowds at them, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna get absolutely, like, I thought it would be the end of the band if we actually did that buy-in, and it was a buy-in as well. It wasn't like, if it was Arch Enemy at the time, or one of those kind of bands we were more linked up to, we would have probably jumped at it. And I was in a job at the time, it was a recession still. People were let go in the job previous, and Foster was doing exams. Our drummer was a chef, so it was kind of nearly split 3 to 2 on doing it, and that kind of left a sour taste with a lot of the guys. And then I think we did the Vakin competition. We were in the final with Cold War, and they won that year, deservedly
Cold
so.
War, yeah,
and and I think that just kicked us as well. It was like icing on the cake to go. Yeah, it was kind of just left. It was never like official.
Okay.
But yeah, it just kind of ended like that. So I mean, it wasn't any like Martin's still doing like cover bands and stuff, and I'm still doing my own thing. Like, and the other lads are like doing their own stuff, like not music, but their own paths and stuff. But good times though.
Oh yeah, definitely, Jesus. And like when you look back, even at the scene back then, Kev, I don't know, do you go to many gigs now yourself? But the scene back then was pretty healthy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I think at any stage there's always tons of bands. As you find out, like the past few years you've been doing this, since 2019 or whatever.
Yeah.
There's tons of good stuff out there. There's just as much bad and average stuff as well. But back then it's pretty much the same, except I think there was more bands. Yeah. They kind of pop up, and then a year or two later they're gone. You see them at a few gigs, and then they disappear. There's always a cohort of a few, like Economy and Evolve Regression, Dead Label, and Dark Seer, and all those bands kind of came up with us, and a few of those kept going while we filtered out eventually. But I mean, I still try and get to gigs. A lot of stuff in Fibbers now, I find, like, instead of Friday nights, Saturday nights, it's kind of cover bands now as opposed to brand new bands or whatever.
True. So, and they get the fucking crowds, man.
They do, yeah. I mean, Martin plays like in Tin Lizzy cover band. He does Motorheaders. He does AC/DC. Like one night he could do maybe 2 or 3 bands up, and he's like switching between the Prosonos and everything. Like,
Jesus,
tons of people. Tons of people.
Like, I mean, you only have to look at the likes of the Seattle grunge machine, like that they can fill out huge. Like they can fill out what? They can fill out the Academy, like.
Yeah, and my friends in a Tool band as well, cover bands. Can't remember their name. I should know him. Confi's the drummer.
Oh, and, God, what are they called? They're actually very good.
They're brilliant.
Grudge.
Is it the Grudge? They're even. I'd nearly say they're better than Tool in terms of the set list, anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. They play all the favorites, but I mean, it's still healthy. I mean, it's great to see Dead Label still going, and like going beyond what we ever did.
Bloodstock, yeah, man, fair play to them. They're on the main stage there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, so it's, I mean, they were always class. Like, and like when they used to be with us and stuff, they were nothing but like sound even back then. But you could tell they loved playing, and they loved to, like, they were serious about it as well. There was undercurrent of being serious about it, but being sound as well is always class. Like to add on top of it,
Yeah. So at that time, I suppose it would be correct in saying you made a really important friendship and relationship with Michael Richards of Track Mix Studios.
Yeah, we used him for the Valediction album, and just saw how he worked. And when it came to doing my own stuff, I was kind of like, I kind of know what he's about. He's done the synth stuff as well, so he knows, in terms of mixing and all, how to blend that in. I had a few songs written, but there was one in particular, the one I talked about at the start, A Pale Reflection, and I said I'd go in for a day, see if it worked. If it doesn't work, I'll leave it. No one will have to hear it.
Yeah.
And I was actually originally going to not have any vocals whatsoever, and I said it to Mick, kind of bouncing back and forth, and he's like, "Go into the booth, and sure, I'll let you know if it sounds good or not."
Yeah.
And within like 1 or 2 of the verses, he's like, "This, just keep going."
Class.
And that's what made me stick with it then, is because, I didn't have much confidence in my voice. I would have done backing vocals for Valediction, but would have been pure just kind of roaring rather than trying to scream.
Yeah.
So, happy enough with it. And then that kind of continued on for like since then. So I've known him, more than being in the band of Valediction and stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, someone like that is... I talk to a lot of solo artists on this that come out with their own projects, and I find that a lot of the time a guy like Mick Richards is vital to them, because he can give you the feedback, you have the trust, and he can be open enough as well to you to suggest things to change, and you'll take it on board.
Yeah, you need that as well. You need a kind of back and forth, and he's good with that, you know, and he's good with like spotting things and hearing things
Yeah,
and just the whole mix and like just the whole process with him. It's very easy with him, you know, and straightforward. Obviously it's great like to be prepared as well. I kind of prepare a lot of it at home now.
yeah.
The first three albums I used to go in, record everything, vocals, guitars, bass. I used to sit
Wow.
behind the kit and just do the cymbals because like no way could I do like
Yeah,
not a drummer at all.
yeah, yeah.
Used to do cymbals and stuff, but it doesn't really blend well and bleed well in.
Yeah, and Jesus,
So
that would take, how long would that take, Kev? The initial first three albums, like you'd be in the studio for what, a week, I'd guess? Or
yeah,
more?
yeah. The first album was definitely a week and a half, and then I started to get a bit better at things
Okay.
and get down to 7 days and 5 days.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of doing albums within 3 to 4 to 5 days if I have to.
Great.
I'm recording a lot at home now. I have a lot of stuff, you know, proper microphone. I have all the gear behind me as well.
That takes a while to accumulate,
The
I
build
bet you.
up, yeah. So from 2016 onwards, like I didn't have an album till 2020, and I kind of recorded half in the studio, half at home with the 2020 album, just in case it was shit at home, and I was like, oh feck, and then
Yeah.
you know have to add more days in when I
Okay.
could have done it all in one go anyway. So it worked out. And then since the album last year, I've been doing it mostly from home. Then I go into the studio with Mick, send all the files across, and get it all down. You know.
Yeah. And of course, you have the benefit of not having to answer to anybody but yourself.
Yeah, like I think labels now just to me it's more of a middleman. Just for me personally, it's like it is solo stuff. They're not
Yeah.
going to get the gigs and all that are more favorable. You know, there's not much in album sales
Yeah.
for them. You know, there's no real point. So I like doing it myself. Like you know, you carve out your little section, your little niche,
Yeah.
and you get your 50 odd fans, and you know it's great to see that you can sell out. Like the third album's now fully sold out. Only have about 10 CDs of the last two albums, and then this album's 50% of the way there already for
Yeah.
physical sales. So happy enough, you know.
Yeah. And of course, the live aspect is you're done and dusted with that, man. You're not doing any of that
Yeah, it would be a
anymore. Yeah.
lie to say like you wouldn't secretly love to like obviously play the Siege, which would or
Yes.
something grand, you know, to like
Yeah.
top it all off. But
Yeah.
I think like the way I program a lot of drums with the mind of like you know Dave Lombardo and all this kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I'll take a lot of their tricks and kind of shape it into my songs and stuff like
Okay.
that. And I know like that's killing off 90% of the drummers out there. You know, off the bat.
Of
But there
course.
is,
Yeah.
I mean, you could make a set list at this stage with songs that are well doable, you know. But I found it, especially towards the end of Valediction, I actually found it hard to gig, and I didn't. I started to not enjoy it a lot.
Oh, really?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just I don't
Probably
know
the
what.
waiting around, or is it, or
Yeah,
what?
and you know, you go all the way down to well, not all the way down, Cork or like up north and stuff, and you're there for the whole day, sound checking at 4 or 3, and then you're waiting. And yeah, not really enjoying that part anymore. And then,
Yeah. A
even
lot
though I
of
was in my
people.
20s,
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that. I mean, yeah, like for a 30-minute set, the travel, the waiting around, you're getting food, there's
yeah,
expenses thrown in there, and just to play for 30 minutes then. But like
yes,
obviously those 30 minutes will be, you know, the release. This is what you're working to as a musician anyway, you know, for
yeah,
people to
yeah.
listen to
It's
your music.
and then I got really critical and like I don't know if it's like it was a controlling thing, but like you'd hear something going wrong, like the drums or something, or you hear something else, and that like stick in my mind. Then I was like, oh, that didn't sound right. That didn't sound right. Maybe it's because I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Oh, okay.
You know, you start to hear, and these things start to niggle me. As like maybe it's a bit more than just those things. That was more of a symptom than you know the cause of me not to enjoy them. You know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to. You know, I'm glad we didn't go full on. You know, Fibbers every week back then with Valediction, and you know, if I ever was kind of blessed to have a few guys that wanted to do it, then you know it would be one-off kind of gigs. You know,
Yes.
but it's very, very unlikely.
And the songwriting process then with your Kev, is it composed mainly on a guitar or keys, or what way do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a keyboard and stuff. It'd be very rare I get a song started on that. I remember
Okay.
reading in a Crying magazine, actually, Trent Reznor was he was asked the same question. And back in the 90s, he was like, I used to grab a tape player and then just grab my acoustic guitar and then just start riffing. He would then listen back to it and take, oh, that's a good riff, that's a good riff, and then start from there. So I
Okay.
pretty much get my acoustic guitar and just riff for a while. I remember I was watching Varg, his crazy YouTube
Oh,
channel,
Jesus Christ.
um,
Go
just
on.
randomly watching it, and I was like, "Oh, he's talking about like songwriting," so I was a bit interested. And he's like, "Oh, I used to hum lead melodies over his rhythm to get an idea."
Okay, yeah.
Then I started doing that, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." So you'd be like, humming along to whatever rhythm part you're playing, and yeah, just build it up by that. From the Valediction days, we used a software called Guitar Pro. It's basically like making MIDI, like computer music. Basically, you could tab out everything. So like every single song I have, and even in the Valediction days, we have all the songs tabbed out. Like you could play it like computer music. And
Really? I've had, well, of course, like I'm not a proper musician, so I'd never heard of that.
yeah, so it's like I'm sure a few of the guys that you've had on, or especially maybe solo artists, have
Yeah.
have used Guitar Pro. A lot of people is like, you're mad to use that, to be like, you have to program every little bit, even all the drums, everything, the synths. But that was really helped me. So every single song you hear, I've already had all that tabbed out. I can play along with it. I know
Okay.
where the notes are supposed to go, so it's not just completely from memory. Wouldn't work if I had to do it all from memory. So that really helps with the
Okay.
recording process.
And has that changed and developed over the years, Guitar Pro? Is
Yeah,
that a
but I'm still,
subscription service or what?
yeah, it's kind of turned into it's a bigger beast now. I think it's on like Guitar Pro 7 or 8 or something, but
Okay.
I'm still on 5.2. I'm still on the retro one. I was like, I can't go to the new one. I just so used to the old way.
Oh, yeah, in case you lose anything, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm kind of sticking with that, what I know, and not bothering with anything. Like, there's enough stuff to learn, regardless of software. But
And
yeah,
we'll say your life then outside of music. Do people like obviously your partner or whatever, or your family and stuff like that? Do they know you're a musician and have loads of albums? How does that work? Like, I'm sure you get new friends as life goes on, and it'll be
yeah.
brought up. And then is that strange for you then to kind of go, well, it's a different type of music to what you could be expecting? Are you nearly apologizing for it? Like?
No, I wouldn't apologize. No way, no fear.
Good man.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you have to have some kind of confidence in it. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of crumble in front of you before you even
I know
explain it to
I'm
someone.
not on about apologizing. I'm just like, because people
Yeah,
have this concept or perception about heavy metal in general and the type of music that you're playing.
you'd be surprised when it's friends. Like I've friends from school like that I still talk to, and they wouldn't be into metal at all. Like they'd know the mainstream artists, and that's it.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I'm talking about what my stuff, when I dive into some of the lyrics for the laugh,
Yeah.
and they'd have a good crack with it. And it's like, okay, you're
Yeah.
not just talking about, like, because they'd be used to like Kings of Leon or something,
Okay.
talking about fire and shite and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I was like, no, I'm talking about society, man.
Yeah. But
But
I do find that myself, whenever we're out, maybe just socially for something or other, and we get to talk to people or just talk to couples, and I would never say it, but my wife would always go, "Oh, Richie has a podcast," and I'm going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, here we
yeah,
go now."
there is certain times when that happens. Yeah,
And then, "Oh, what kind of podcast is it?" And I'm going, "Well, it's a heavy metal podcast about the Irish metal scene." And they're, "What? What's that about? Like, is there an Irish metal scene?" I'm going, "Yes, there
Mm.
is," and name bands, and they wouldn't have a fucking clue. And they're going, "Oh," and they're almost then apologizing to you for not knowing. And it's just like, I just fucking hate being put in that situation. It's just like,
Yeah. Because we've had that discussion before, like in our heads as well, and with other people, and yeah, it's just part of being a metalhead, isn't it?
it is. It is. We are a tribe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do or die.
Yeah, and like, so we'll say I'm building my way up to the new album. By the way, it's just like there's
No.
just so much
Enjoying
to,
this.
Yeah. So with COVID, right, I hate bringing it up anyway, but like, how did you find that in relation to creatively exploring what you had? Was there songs there that you'd maybe developed and saw through that made it to the previous album, or is there still maybe one or two that made it to this album even?
Yeah, I mean, with COVID and stuff and lockdowns, I actually didn't write as much as I thought I would. I very much get writer's block, like hugely. I could go 6 to 8 months without writing anything.
Really?
So, but I could write 6 or 8 songs in like 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And from then on, it's refining those ideas. And then, with the first 3 albums, I was really bad with quality control, and I should have been more critical. So that's
but that comes with age, man.
Yeah, and it's like lesson learned. It was more enthusiasm back then. It's like, I'll throw 15 songs on this album, and then you realize, I could have been 9 and it would have been just as good. That kind of way.
I understand. So
definitely things you learn from all that as well. And with the last kind of Past Lives, the album I did in 2021. Like that was more like the Valediction kind of stuff. It was more melodic death metal. So I kind of wanted to have a nod back to that. And that was songs I wrote back in 2016, 2017. There was, I think, only 2 new songs on that album. So I'm kind of tapping my old reservoir at the moment. But with this album, I definitely went more riffs on the riffs. A lot of my stuff was more like atmospheric, not so much about the riffs, but about like the feeling of the song and all that. But with this one, I kind of try and mix the two together, have more riffs, more of those sections where you're kind of nodding your head. So I don't really have them in my songs. In a lot of the old stuff, you kind of listen to my old stuff, and you're like, when can I bang my head? It's cool, but
because I was going to actually ask you about that, riffs versus atmosphere and the mood.
And I tried to do it like the song Collapse the Mountain. I try bring the two together. So like the verses, I have a lot of the kind of chunky riffs, and then like bring back the lead into the chorus. But then I have an acoustic part in the middle. And then
your lead work actually, Kev, is exceptional.
Which?
Your lead work on the album is exceptional. Really, really good.
I carried that on from the last album, and there was a tiny bit of that on the 2020 album, but not much. So I was like, look, once I'm at home and I can do it. I'm not the best lead guitarist, but the past
it really works with the songs. It really does.
I needed it. I kind of found like maybe in the first 3 albums, if I refined them a bit more, it would have had more lead stuff in it. And
would you have 2 guitars, 1 guitar for lead and 1 for rhythm, or what?
Yeah, hold on.
This is what I love, organization. For those that are listening, Kev is showing me his guitars.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So this is like a Dean. So this is my lead guitar. It's a white.
It's a beauty.
Rust Cooley one, and then there's an Agile, which is like my black guitar. So that's for the rhythm. And for people that can't see, this is my Warwick bass. 5-string. But
you've had
this is like $3,500 to buy, but I got it for $1,000. I had to go up north to get it, so that was definitely worth the trip up.
When did you purchase that?
Got it 2009.
Okay. Jesus.
From a guy, I can't remember his name now at this stage, but he bought it in like 2000 in New York, and he was kind of gigging up north. I think he was kind of in like kind of a rock band.
Okay.
And he just didn't need any use for it anymore. He wasn't gigging, so I had to jump at the chance because I always wanted a Warwick. And I think it's pretty much the reason why Mick bought a Warwick bass for his studio.
Someone was saying that. I think it could have been Adrian Foley.
Oh yeah, possibly, yeah.
Might have been him now that had the use of that Warwick bass in the studio.
Because I was been bringing that in forever, like, and Mick's like, such a good sound from that. And then I think 3 albums in, he had one, and he got a Corvette as well. So he has 2 Warwick basses now, and he's like, people that come in with their own basses are like, they play that and they're like, oh God, that sounds so much. It's just the round kind of fat sound you get from it. And there's a bit of a clank to it as well.
Fat is the word there, definitely.
Yeah. So
I'm going to play one song anyway and it's at the moment it's my favorite. It will change, I know it will. But so this is Reveal the Art Trees, and what's the
Attach the Leeches, my friend.
Attach the Leeches. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you can guess why that's probably my favorite, because there's so much going on with it.
Yeah.
And like there's some great lead work right through as well, and some fucking riffs, man, as well.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, it was good fun. I remember when I was we were doing the mix or whatever, and there's certain sections where you're getting the blast beats, and then the kind of long roars. Basically, I'm like, we need more echo, we need more reverb, and Mick is like, oh, you'll become a citizen of Norway with this track.
But I mean, again, like I wouldn't be a fan of a lot of synths and keyboards. I'll hold my hand up on that, but you work them in nicely into it. They're not in your face, which is good.
Yeah, it's very subtle kind of stuff.
It is,
it'd be very rare. I'm darting it in, like, when I say symphonic, it is really like, it's not really symphonic. It's more kind of synth work. But it'd be very rare I'm doing the darting kind of stuff. Only when it suits, I think, the song.
Correct. So. Yeah. And would you use the key, because there's the hint as well of we'll say choirs in the background?
Yeah, there's again very, very, very slight keys. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I love that because that gives way more atmosphere as well. So I was trying to marry the two. Like, that's a good example of that song of getting the riffs along with still have the stuff in the background and still there. There's kind of a presence. There's always a line or a synth that's under everything.
Yeah. I want to talk to you as well about lyrics. Is there any kind of William Gibson, Philip K. Dick influences coming through?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay. Well, why not?
Yeah, there's a bit of him in the title track. People will probably spot it out once you listen to it. Yeah. But I try not to give too much away with explaining the albums in terms of like lyrics. I like when people give their own view.
Well, that's fair enough. Absolutely.
Own interpretations, but I always try to, at least I try to do like a 3-prong approach in terms of like give the listeners a chance they can bring out a view in it. Then in terms of the album context, there's lyrics for it, and then sprinkle in a bit of my own kind of personal stuff and bits and pieces, that kind of way. So
like, I mean, holistic cult there. The cult conformity in fashion, finding faults in everyone is lacking in compassion, opinionated importance, knows no bounds, while guilt announced in a court of clowns. Really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much on the nose, I think, that one. But, it's very much like, there's kind of that cult perception of like, a certain fad or something that's going on in society. And it's like, okay, we need to, it never happens in practice. Everyone says, oh, it's great to be this way and like have a devotion towards a certain viewpoint, but human instinct kind of kicks in and it doesn't go the way everyone thinks it will go, and you kind of need to push against the grain and have a bit of self-awareness, and don't judge a book by its cover. We kind of went across that, like talking to mates or other people we know that aren't into metal. Things aren't black and white, and things are complicated. People are multifaceted, so
I picked out another one as well, and it's funny, the title, Render Us All Obsolete. Shout out to Yurt, who have an album title and a song called Upgrade to Obsolete.
Oh, okay.
Were you aware of that? No,
it wasn't actually.
And a big shout out to them. They're fucking super band. Another 3-piece from Dublin. Cool. But render us all obsolete, mute the noise and fuck the norm, elevate me higher beyond the human form. We must find a source of diversion truths that sponsor corporations through the polling booths. Another good social commentary there, man.
Yeah, there's a bit of social political kind of stuff on this album. I don't want to veer. I don't usually veer that much into it. But
I was surprised to see it. Yeah,
it's kind of a dystopian future. Like, again, it's very much on the nose and using a bit of technology in the future. At first, like, to enhance this. I'm not saying this is happening. I'm not going to go down any conspiracy theory routes. But like, if you ever project things out, if you want to predict things, like health reasons given first, and then you're programmed into submission. So that's very much the idea of like what could happen if there was like system or government control or too much of it, and just to be like what type of world it could be if we don't we're not careful, or that type of thing.
Yeah, because like that's my point in relation to like Gibson and Philip K. Dick, because one other set of lyrics there in Nanotech Required is plug me in and obey. Feed me the code and betray myself. A race to the bottom, no climbing up the walls. My words and the voice is mine.
Yeah, and earlier in the song, I say like, my words, but the voice ain't mine.
Yeah.
So, and at the end, I'm like, it is mine. So, I don't know if you ever saw that stuff. Adobe, the company, they released a YouTube video on AI software that can record you. You might talk for a minute or so, and then they can edit what you say, and they can put in new words, and it sounds exactly like you. It can emulate your voice.
Okay.
So like extrapolate that out. It's like, I mean, we all know what Photoshop was like in the 90s, but nowadays it's like you can't tell what's what with photos. Same thing will happen with audio. In 10 years' time, if you extrapolate that idea out, you'll have Morgan Freeman in every audio book. Richie, you'll if you don't want to do it anymore, you can just type it all out. Have a program, Richie, in the middle.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be? Do you think anybody would notice, Kev?
You sitting in the background just drinking away.
We do more than drinking.
Just keep the audio off.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's just a bit of a theme that I'm just trying to explore with you, because I mean, in your Past Lives album, that song Become Static. It's a little test, man. Like, because your lyric content is through the roof. It's fantastic, but in that Become Static, it's kind of hinting at you're kind of looking at dystopian world and in the future, because with the lyrics, discard the weak, seek out to terminate the cells that break away, form bonds and mutate, so replicate, upload and activate, sequence and recreate the carbon primate that is me. Is that out of sequence in relation to the rest of that album? Because there's another track in that album as well that kind of hints at kind of, again, this future that's kind of out of control in relation to technology, because a lot of your lyrics then kind of would be not quite mythical, but they play along the lines of overthrowing
defiance kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I suppose it's only really since the third album I started doing all that kind of stuff as well. And but I never really went in the technology route. It's only in the past two albums I've kind of fully explored it a bit more. And
I think it actually suits the music, Kev, as well.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
I don't want to. I never pigeonhole myself. Like, as you can see, like I try to at least expand it out. You still know it's Sonus Mortis, but I think with the last album, I thought I kind of blended well the melodic depth with my sound.
Yeah.
And then the lyrics I tried to keep somewhat similar, but adding more to my bow,
Yeah. I suppose what I'm trying to get at is there a concept in between those two or three albums there that you're exploring in certain sections, we'll say, of songs?
Yeah, I suppose, like, being in IT, I can't help but think.
Oh, really? Are you?
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing computers. I was a PC gamer since I was like 7 or 8. So like playing Doom and Quake and all these games, all the soundtracks as well, brilliant on them.
Yeah.
But
these fucking questions, Kev, man, I weeded it out that you're IT.
I'm a complete
nerd.
Sense.
That makes sense now. Okay. Yeah.
But,
well, how bad, man? I mean, that's great to take your creativity from that side of things,
Yeah, no, obviously, like, in metal, like we explore things that like a lot of other genres don't really do. And it's a perfect example of going into those things as well, because you never know what the future might hold. There might be perfect imitations of us in the future.
That's
still
scary,
going.
Man. That's scary.
But we'll need Kurt Russell with the flamethrower.
I'm going to play the title track, if you don't mind. Collapse the Mountain. Pre-recorded. But yeah, I could play that track the whole way through, and that section there, you know, the way I've been listening to metal since fuck knows how long, but sometimes you anticipate what the musician is going to play, and you'd hope that it would go in there, and that part there where it just kicks off and gets faster and heavy is just perfect.
Yeah, yeah, I like that part. I actually said that to Mick. I was like, I think that's one of my favorite sections off the album. Yeah, that's because it's a
lovely build up, isn't it?
Yeah, and I tried to, like, I wanted the intro. It's like I need something grandeur, you know, to talk this, you know, mountain, you know. So I needed a lead riff that had some kind of weight to it, like the sheer scale of it, and like just that last part there. That was the Edgar Allan Poe part, you know, deep.
Oh, was that it? Ah, class.
Leering, you know, along. I stood there pondering, fearing. It's the Raven.
Yeah.
And like on one level, it's like, you know, mountains, you know, even on mountains of music, like you'll never be able to climb them all. Most people don't even climb one, you know, and it's like kind of never ending nearly if you let it be never ending. And yeah, I just, you know, and even like the other viewpoints of like climbing up a mountain, like as a kid, like it's new, everything's new, teenager, you're experiencing all of that's how the first verse kind of goes. Then in the chorus, you're kind of talking about it being restricting as an adult. You know, your other things get in the way. Like there's other mountains to climb. You'll never climb them. You know. Yeah. So it's all a lot of that kind of stuff. You know. And that was kind of an unrealistic thing to say is like collapse the mountain. You know, as into like, you know, get out of your rut or all that type of stuff. You know, something drastic has to happen in order for that to happen. You know, asteroid would do the trick. You know.
It would. And was that just the obvious title and track for the album? Kev, had you another one or two in mind that could have possibly been the title one?
The first two tracks, it could have been either them or the fourth track, Queen Talamh, but on a marketing perspective, like an Irish title, I don't know how well that would work. I could have done it.
You could have, yeah.
Because the artwork does work with that, but it doesn't work with the first two tracks. So it was either the fourth track or Collapse the Mountain. I kind of like how it looked and how it fitted the music, I thought.
Yeah. And let's talk about the artwork. It is fantastic. Is that a Polish artist or something? I've heard of Slava before.
Yeah, I think he did the Grief stuff. So
yes, that's it, my friend.
Yeah,
well done.
So I saw it, and this was years ago. I think it was 2018, 2019 when they brought out that great album, Ascent.
Oh, super
savage. And
yes,
I saw the kind of artwork and was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of along the lines that I kind of like. Just the drawing aspect of it, and I kind of looked and I saw what else he kind of had, and I was like, oh, that kind of suits what I have in my head for the next. I wasn't even at that album yet.
Yeah.
I was an album behind at
Really?
the stage. Yeah. So I had this artwork for a while. So I had it for a year and a half before I actually used it.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, you can purchase that art, can't you?
Yeah, yeah. So this is different to my other albums the first 4 albums, I actually, went to an artist and, got the artwork. While this was for Past Lives and this album, I actually, Shutterstock, you can get the licensing that way.
Yeah.
So I decided to go down that route just in terms of trying to bring my costs down, basically, and I'm at a stage now where 3 out of the 6 albums are kind of paid for.
Great.
So I look at it as a discount on my recording and get my music out there, and it's a big bonus, and plus people listening to it and all that, So icing on the cake, really.
So you don't have to justify it to your wife.
Yeah, especially nowadays. Didn't mind years ago, but now when it needs...
same story everywhere, man. For every musician, I'd say, that are in a marriage or
I counter with, I'm not going to the footy every weekend and going to the pub, my hobby is music,
Of course, yeah.
He understands that, like.
We're really good at coming up with fucking great excuses, man. So Slava did the artwork for that. The 2 videos then you released with the songs, Kev, was that something you wanted to do, explore that artwork? And
yeah, so obviously some people can go and get the proper videos done. I've done 1 or 2 or 3 that have been Shutterstock stuff as well. So just stock footage, and I assemble it together then, and it's okay. It works for the tracks, considering I'm a solo artist.
And you're saving costs, obviously, as well.
Yeah, and so this time I was like, I pretty much don't have the time to do every single facet of what was entailed nowadays to get your music out there, So I stumbled across. Actually, I think Alan Averill had a podcast on this recently, so this ties in really well with what he was talking about. He was talking about AI art and the morality behind it and all that, and I understand that too. Being in tech, my job could be gone in 10 years' time. It's that fast going. But as anything, I think it's going to be complementary and not real artists, but any artist will be able to tack on that onto their own stuff. What I did was, for a few of those images, was some of my old albums covers, I would put that into the AI and generate new texts, and it was throwing out new stuff based on my artwork.
Yes.
So it was fun to explore as well. It was kind of oh, this is kind of cool to mess around with.
Of course.
And then I just started morphing all the pictures into one another and trying to go with the lyrics. So I was putting the text prompts, as my lyrics into it as well. So it wasn't just I'll just, take all these random things and throw it in. So there's a bit of thought behind it. And I thought it went okay, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, again, it's something to grab the imagination while you're listening to the track on YouTube, certainly.
And it's kind of scary to think that this is the start of it, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I've been truthful. I never heard of this. To my shame, because I was a graphic designer way back in the day, so I know all about Photoshop and Work Express.
And you might have heard of the DeepMind stuff, the Google, so DALL-E or whatever. I think we're the first kind of incarnation of it, and then these guys came along and was let's go one step further.
It's mental.
It is mental.
Yeah, but it is something there for an artist like yourself to get material out of, get content, and fuck it. There is the whole.
There is a moral. I understand that. I'll always go first foremost with that.
Yeah.
When I can.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it opens it up to a lot of people that wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Correct. Yeah.
So.
And as I said, the artwork for the Collapse Mountain is fantastic, man. And that's so nice that the grief helped you along with that.
I saw it on, was it either Metal, I don't think Metal Iron was still around, but Metal Warfare is kind of a kind of new birth of it or whatever. And they put up the album, and I was listening, and I was I bought it when I heard the first track, thought it was amazing. And I was like, oh, that artwork's great. And I think someone else asked about it, and then that's how I found out, and I searched it then myself.
So for physical copies, It's there on CD.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
You haven't explored the idea of T-shirts drawing yet, have you?
I did it back in 2016, and I went with a website that, they'll only, once you get to a certain amount of orders, they'll do the bulk one and they'll ship them out to all the various people. Okay. I ended up just doing a few for myself, just shipping it to myself. And
very good.
Just because I like the design, I got a guy to do before. But yeah, once I start getting into that realm, I don't know. Like it's kind of like the same thing with celebrities that I have about it. Like I don't know. It's just like it feels weird to like have people wearing it or something, that kind of way.
Okay.
Obviously, like I love seeing band t-shirts anyway, but I don't know if I could add that as another thing on my list of things to do and to sort out. Like I
mean, time is the enemy, really, isn't it?
And space, especially for like having extra large and extra small that you never sell. I'm trying to be realistic as well about it.
Yeah, I suppose that's the advantages of a pre-order. It's something you could explore as well.
Yeah, so I might go back down that realm again. Just see how things go with this.
I mean, look, there's only so much one can expect of you to do. I mean, I have to give a shout out at this stage as well to Jack from Rotlust. That video he did with Olga was just incredible.
I mean, it's great to see that and get the creativity from it, because like obviously back in the day when you'd be watching videos like more like say MTV or whatever. It was just great to see a lot of creativity back then, and then it was kind of lost for a good while. I feel it's kind of coming back.
It is.
And just getting more creative with it, rather than just the usual, I'm in a dungeon or a warehouse, I'm playing in a dirty place.
Yes.
So we've seen it all before, like,
man, I mean, look, it's fantastic what you've done, man, and congratulations again on the release, and long may it continue, Kev.
Yeah, thanks, Richie.
Yeah, so Collapse the Mountain is out. It's there on CD, and head over to Bandcamp. You'll find it there, and Kevin is raising a glass there of whiskey. and you know what, it's nice for you to come on the show, and it's great to celebrate another stellar release to the Irish metal scene, and thanks for that, Kev. Fair play.
Yeah, cheers, Richie, and thanks for all you do, and all your metal cell members as well. It's great. Great listen every week.
Yeah, it's look, we're out there to help the likes of you, man, and that's why we're doing the show. So I'm going to leave it at that, and crucially, support your local metal scene.
Rock on.